So the two essential messages that we want to be sure get out today. One is to the community of Oakland and the Bay Area, and that is to wake up, to stay alert. They're not going to tell us, just like they didn't tell us about the verdict and they didn't tell us about the sentencing, and we had to play this guessing game in order to organize, and their intention in that was to keep us from organizing and to keep us from getting in the streets. But as we have proved time and time again since 2009, you cannot stop us from mobilizing. You cannot stop us from organizing. We will not sit down. We will not shut up. We will not forget. And so you can play your games with the release date. You can play your games, but we are ready and we will act on that day. And so our call to the Oakland community is get in tune with us on Facebook. There is a Facebook event page. Follow that event page. We will have up-to-date, minute-by-minute information, and when he is released, we will find out, we will let you know, and we will be here at 3 o'clock for Fruitvale BART, and then we'll be at 5 o'clock on the corner of 40th and Broadway. And everybody come out and stand up and protest this injustice. The second message that we want to get out today is to Oakland, is to BART, is to OPD, is to the justice systems. We will not forget. We will never forget what you did to Oscar Grant. We will never forget what you did to Derrick Jones. We will never forget what you've done to countless unarmed young black and brown men. And we have said enough is enough. And we will continue to take to the streets, take over the streets until it stops.
Setting a precedent in California, this particular case, because we know that dozens of murders have occurred since then. Police have killed dozens of people. The district attorneys have continuously returned either that they've decided not to file criminal charges, or that the police departments and police commissions rule that the shootings were justified. We saw that in the case here recently with the shooting of Derrick Jones. We saw that with the shooting of Raheem Brown, and also with Fred Collins by the BART police. You know, we're back to protest again and to take to the streets, because if people aren't in the streets, we know that there will be no accountability, and the police will continue to murder people and use excessive force and commit the kinds of corruption that they're doing all over the place. We feel that things have moved backwards since the trial. Initially, it was important because of community action. The district attorney had to prosecute, but since then, we've seen Mehserle do less than half of his 2-year sentence. Marcel Dominici and Tony Peroni have been reinstated to the BART police, where they can continue to engage in acts of misconduct and discrimination and racial profiling there. And BART has been taken off the hook in the civil filing.
I just wanted to note that incredibly less violent people with minor offenses are not allowed to continue their lives, obtain employment. In some cases, are not even allowed to move into their own neighborhoods. But in Oakland, law enforcement, who purports to be held to the highest standard of law, are allowed to be totally dismissive in the case of ultimate wrongdoing. For example, ending somebody's life. In the case of Dominici and others, they're hired back with pay and no additional requirements necessary to continue abuses and profiling. How extreme a message is that? What better way to make a group of people feel targeted, criminalized? You know, the absence of compassion for the family and the community involved is sad, and it's very revealing. And then when a crime happens in our community, it's treated as peculiar when citizens don't trust law enforcement. You know, the absence of consequence of the individuals involved in this particular crime will have long-standing and devastating consequences on the future relationship between law enforcement and certain members of the community. And I know that's okay with a lot of folks, but only because they don't realize we're actually just one community. I feel like if you want to stop crime and violence, then stop crime and stop violence, and recognize that no human being's life holds more worth than another's. That's a very violent and dangerous viewpoint to hold, and it's prevalent in Oakland. You know, look at the 10 and 11 subsequent murders. It's affecting us, and it's in a deadly manner, and it affects us all, really, law enforcement included. Directly or indirectly.
We as a family felt this as in total injustice. Again, being victims of a violent crime, according to the Victims' Bill of Rights, again, the criminal justice system has let us down. I have just got back from Los Angeles believing, according to what I was told, that the trial will be on June 1st. As you know, it did not occur. It has been moved to June 13th. Again, I will be in LA. It's not even guaranteed that there will happen or even be a trial. It may just be a simple thing of Judge Perry going into the court saying he actually did his time and therefore he is already out. We've been informed that he's actually going to be released June 12th, and yet they have a trial on or hearing on June 13th. So there's so much uncertainty. And it goes to show just how injustice this criminal justice system is when it comes to police officers being incarcerated, because victims are entitled to know the whereabouts of convicted felon, to even be notified when a convicted felon is being released, so that we can at least be aware that our livelihood, our presence could be in danger. We feel that Mehserle is a threat to not just the family, but the community. This man came up on that platform, as you can see in the video, spoke outrageously to the young man on that platform, punched Jackie Bryson, and yet at the same time murdered my nephew. And I use that word without hesitation, because we as a family see it as murder and still believe it was murder, and therefore will continue to say that it was.
What the system did is this man was convicted of murder, and he did his time in a county jail. He was, through the whole trial, he was protected by Judge Perry, who looked after him as he was his son or something like that, and looked at Oscar and these young men as they were criminals, when Johannes Mehserle was a criminal. And it's sad to say, once again, the community gets slapped in the face. History always repeats itself in the black and brown community. And if this was a black or a brown young man that committed this crime, they wouldn't have done it in the county jail. They would have done it in Soledad, Folsom, and once again, the system proved that it's not, it doesn't work for men of color, but it works for Johannes Mehserle, people like Johannes Mehserle. And until we identify with racism, we'll never be able to correct this system.
We heard several minutes ago from Rachel Jackson about the epidemic of police killings that have happened since Mehserle's sentencing. I've counted at least 9 just here in Oakland. There may well have been more than that. Just a couple of weeks ago, a joint OPD and DEA operation resulted in the summary execution of 2 young men. A day later, Michael Huerta, in a similar operation, was taken into custody, apparently in fine health at 3 in the morning when he was taken to North County Jail. Called his family twice in the next several hours, saying he was scared and felt ill. 9 in the morning or thereabout, he is being booked, suddenly goes into medical distress and dies. And the sheriff's department and the police department have not been forthcoming with any details. Similarly, Raheem Brown, many of us have heard about this young man who was killed by either Jonathan Belusa or Bahim Batts. Frankly, both were complicit in my opinion. They shot this man at close range, 21-year-old, shot him at close range 7 times, riddled his body with bullets. And just recently at an Oakland Unified School District meeting, these were officers employed by the school district, despite the fact that at least one of them had a history of lawsuits for use of excessive force and for violence. At a recent meeting, it was announced that the OUPD and Office of Internal Affairs concluded these men did nothing wrong. They're still working. Belusa is presiding over school board meetings in the capacity of being some kind of guard or something. This is outrageous.
We're clear that Johannes Mehserle will be released from a county jail sometime soon. We understand that. But to force this family to endure games by the court, which played the greatest game on the day of sentencing, when Judge Perry spoke out and said from the moment we walked in the courtroom that he was troubled by the finding of the jury. When the jury arrived at a finding because of the advice given to them by Judge Perry. The jury, according to Judge Perry, only asked one question of him when they went to deliberate. They wanted to know how to handle the weapons enhancement charge. And when they arrived at a conclusion 15 minutes after the judge gave them his response, they came back with a finding of guilty on the weapons charge. Why should Judge Perry be troubled? He's troubled because he misdirected in my mind, with malice the jury. He intended to bring the least possible punishment to Johannes Mehserle because he was the first and only officer in state history ever to be tried and ever to be convicted for an on-duty shooting of anyone in this state. Judge Perry is guilty. And as a result, he is sharing guilt with the people of the state of California. This is why every time we've spoken, we've recited a biblical passage to you from the book of Isaiah that says that justice stands afar off and equity cannot enter because truth has fallen in the street. We are here because truth has been knocked down. But as we all know, there's only a matter of time and circumstance before truth rises and wins. We're honored to stand with Uncle Bobby, and I'm honored to stand with all of these activists who have raised their voices for over 2 years. You don't see some of those you might have seen in the beginning, but these are the stalwarts. These are the heroes. These are the sheroes that have made certain that we would not only never forget what happened to Oscar Grant, but that we would never forget the names and faces of the countless men, women, and children that have been gunned down by local and national law enforcement. So we say to those that are activated, stay activated. Let no one say to you that what you're doing is not the right thing. They're saying to you the same thing that was said to the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. when they wanted to know why he was coming to make trouble. And they would declare down in Mississippi, our Negroes are happy here. Well, let's be clear. We are not happy here. We are not satisfied that justice is being served, and we are not satisfied that there are enough men, women, and children willing to stand on the front line of justice. I say to you, give yourselves a big round of applause because you deserve it for standing for right, for standing for truth, and for standing for justice. Thank you.